There's just some interesting notes that I've kind of perused over as I've been looking. Yesterday, we did a lot of talking about how big a game this is for Kentucky, and I haven't been 5-0 in so long, hadn't been 6-0 in 70 years, and this is a huge game for them. But there are some things that I want to point to on the LSU side first before we get to Kentucky. This is pretty amazing in the Ed Ogeron era that LSU's 16-1 after a loss under Ogeron. The only time LSU's lost back-to-back games under O were A&M and Bama last year. And you realize last year went so poorly, only lost back-to-back games the one time in his tenure here. So he's done a good job of getting his teams up off the mat and performing. Every team's different. Every situation's different. Every opponent's different. Sure, when you lose to UCLA and you come back and play McNeese, probably going to bounce back just fine. But he's done a good job of getting his teams prepared to play no matter the setback, whether it's a blowout loss to Alabama, whether Troy gets you blowout loss to Mississippi State. They have come back the next week and showed up and played and gotten a win. So hopefully that continues this weekend.
Yeah, I think another thing about these Coach O-led football teams is that they're not penalized and they're focused and locked in a lot. We're the least penalized team in the SEC, and Coach O does a good job week in and week out making sure these group of young men are excited and ready to go and attack the task at hand, and that's winning big football games in the SEC. So I'm excited to see how they go out there, especially in that ruckus environment. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be 61,000 at Kroger Field losing their minds, and I think that's going to be a perfect opportunity for our Tigers to go out there and really change this thing around, because that was just a tough home loss, and you want to get this feeling, this taste out of your mouth as soon as you can.
School records don't fall that often, and there's a chance that one falls on Saturday for LSU. The school record for consecutive games with a touchdown catch is 7. Jarvis Landry, Dwayne Bowe, and Kayshon Boutte. If Kayshon goes out and scores a touchdown this week, he will break the school record for consecutive games with a touchdown catch. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I think that's what we looked to before the season. We knew Kayshon, those last 2 games weren't going to be a blip. We knew there was something. You don't just go out there and catch 300 receiving yards for no reason. The kid is super talented, probably our best player on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm excited to see what he can really do, man. That kid's going to break a lot of records here. He's just a phenomenal red zone threat, yards after catch guy. He can really do everything you would like to see from a receiver. So, Kayshon, man, we got to keep feeding that kid.
I talked to Mickey Joseph last night. As I said, it'll air on Saturday on the pregame show. We had a little chat just about how to keep people happy. And with that many people, in the receiving room that are talented, and it starts with Kayshon, and that's the first guy we spoke about and said, yeah, I mean, he's going to be a first-day guy, and he's the best thing about him is he's the exact same every day. And when you hear Kayshon in interviews, you get that sense. He's not a super emotional guy, not a big diva, not a big personality. He's just diligent, committed, uber talented, and that shows in his play.
Yeah, it definitely does. He does a great job just doing all the little things, just crossing DB's face, getting to the right depth in his routes. He just does everything. He's a perfect number 1 receiver that you want. You want all those younger guys, all those freshman kids, even the older guys on the team to follow a guy like that. And just watching them all throughout camp, you could see that he became the leader in that room very fast, and he's done a tremendous job and really starting to become a leader on that offensive side of the ball.
So the question was, okay, how do we keep all these guys happy when they come in? They're all 4- and 5-star players. They've always been the best player on their team, and there's 9 of them in the room, and you can only get some in there. And Mickey had a great line that you'll hear if you listen to the pregame show. But he said, look, I promise you that I never promise anybody they're going to start. I promise you an opportunity to get on the field. And what you do out there dictates whether or not you stay out there. And that was really cool, and it's pretty simple. And you can just put the tape on at practice in the game, and if you're one of the guys that's not playing, he can look at the guys that are, and here's the reason. He's doing this, this, and this, and then you go back to the tape and say, here's the reason you're not. Everyone's gotten a chance to go out there, and now it's about moving forward with the guys who've earned it. And I thought that was a really cool thing that Mickey talked about.
Yeah, that's exactly the way Frank Wilson did things. If you weren't number 1, number 2, and you weren't getting the carries that you want to see, the guy that was getting them was probably making hay, probably doing something with the ball, probably, gaining a lot of yards. And so it's no trickery. It's no, disguise. It's no fooling you. You know exactly what you need to do day in and day out when you enter that building. And when you're not doing those things, you're going to see your snaps go down. You're going to see your targets go down. You're not going to play the amount of snaps you have. And that's something that I've been talking about all year, just especially with the older receivers we have in that room. The younger guys just seem to have a little higher ceiling, a little more juice to them, to me. So will I be shocked by the end of the season we stop seeing some of those older guys out there? I would not.
That's kind of already started. Like, look at what's going on. In last week's game, Jack Besh got multiple double-digit targets. You saw Brian Thomas had 4 catches. Malik Neighbors had a couple. I mean, Jeray Jenkins didn't have any. John Trey wasn't out there much. I mean, we're seeing that shift now. It's not an if proposition. I think it's happening.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's slowly but surely happening. And I know we talked about getting John Trey back last week, and he played a little bit. I don't think he had any catches in the game, and Jeray as well. So those are guys who've done a lot for this program. They played in a lot of big ball games, but like I keep on saying, man, these young receivers just have a different type of juice. I see some of these guys playing at the next level, and you just can't really, dim that light. Those kids are going to have to shine, and the more opportunities they get, the more I think they will.
This is kind of a grab bag segment. I'm just kind of taking things that I've accumulated as I do research, moving forward this week and getting ready for the game. I wanted to look at Kentucky's offensive line. Obviously, that's a huge piece of what they want to do. We're going to talk about Chris Rodriguez, and we're going to talk about Will Levis, and we're going to talk about Wan'Dale Robinson and the guys that make the plays. But the reason Kentucky's offense goes, if it does, is because they win the line of scrimmage and win in the trenches when they run the football. I look at their offensive front. Of course, we know Dare Rosenthal is a fourth-year player. He's their left tackle. Horsey is their left guard. He is a fourth-year player. Fortner is their center. He is a fifth-year player. Cox is a right guard. He's a third-year player. And Kennard's an All-American at right tackle. He's a fourth-year player. So fourth year, fifth year, third year, fourth year. It's a very veteran group up front. That's not uncommon. That's something that you generally see. LSU's is veteran when you look at it in terms of years up front. Real veteran. They just hadn't played very well. But this is an old crew for Kentucky, and that's really what Mark Stoops is going to do. There's not that many times in any position where Kentucky is going to go pluck some five-star kid or some really high-rated four-star kid and plug him in. It's a program that develops talent and then wins because they've got veteran depth.
Yeah, you definitely see that. You see that in that offensive line, man. They were starting to push Florida around, which I didn't think they could do, which is why I like Florida in that ball game. That veteran offensive line did what they had to do, got Rodriguez going when they had to have it, especially in the fourth quarter, go up and by that touchdown at the end. And that's what we're going to have to deal with, man. Our D-line's going to have to play with like their hair's on fire. If they can do that, it's going to make Damone Clark's job easier. It's going to make Baskerville's jobs easier. And it's going to be way easier to stop the run and also force Levis to throw the ball time and time again. And I think that's a recipe for the Tigers to go up to Lexington and have a ton of success.
That is the recipe. There's no thinking about it. That's it. The question is, can they do it? And that's what I'll ask you. Can they do it?
I think so. That Auburn game, you knew Auburn had athletes. You knew they had talent. You knew they had 4 stars. You knew they had a couple 5 stars. Kentucky, I don't feel the same way. Yeah, they got a couple guys here. They got a receiver there, a couple guys here. To me, their best D tackle is not playing in this game. So I think they can do it on both sides of the ball. I think the defense can stop the run. I think the offense can score enough points because I like our receivers against their DBs. So definitely doable.
All right. I've got a few more things, and we'll get to some of this at the end of this hour as well. But I want to go to something that we've talked about really more than we should have. It's repetitive. It's time and time again. But I tend to believe that there are changes coming in the running game this week. I don't think any of them will work, but I think that it'll be different. I think that they have determined, okay, this is what we've tried and it doesn't work. I think you're going to see way more carries for Kiner. I think you're going to see different formations. I think you're going to see different action. I think Max may get involved. Again, none of it matters in my opinion. I'll get your thoughts on this. In my opinion, when the offensive line doesn't get pushed and loses consistently, it doesn't really matter what you do. None of it's going to work. But I do believe, if anything for Ed Ogeron's era here, he has made changes and tried something different when it wasn't going to work. That's what everyone criticized Les for years. You do the same thing. Oh, hires a coordinator, Matt Canada, he's gone. He couldn't do it, he's out. He hires a defensive coordinator that stinks, Pelini, he's out. I mean, he tries to change things. It doesn't always work, but he tries. I think this week, with how god-awful the running game's been for a week, I think there's, even for the JV football fan like me, there will be things that we see that are different.
I hope so, man. I hope that's not wishful thinking. Something just tells me deep inside we're going to see TDP trot out there and start, especially in a Rutgers Road environment. And just what I've seen.
He may start. Kiner will have more carries.
Okay. I could see that. I could see that, but I just know how they feel about it. I got to do some more film studying on this. Like Kiner in the pass plays he is in, is he missing his keys? Are free blitzers coming in at the quarterback? Because if you can't point to that, I really can't see what else you're pointing to at this point, that he hasn't earned more carries in these games. He hasn't shown what he's capable of, especially just what he does, yards after contact, at least at the bare minimum. So I'll be looking to see that, but I haven't seen anything so far. But If you ask me, man, I don't think so, man. I think we're gonna see a lot of the same stuff. I think we're gonna see TDP. We're gonna see some inside zone. We're gonna see that little counter play. It's just what we do, man. RPO behind it. I don't see them really going too crazy at this point, but I could be wrong, and I would love if I was.
And the other thing that because I actually this is something that we've talked about a good bit too. You get something when O talks in front of a microphone. He's very short with his answers, but he gives you information. Last night on the call-in show, someone called in and asked, "Why don't you throw it to the backs more?" And he said, "Well, we have to keep him in because we can't pass protect with 5 guys. We always have to have a tight end ship or the running backs come in." So certainly that's being weighted very heavily how you handle yourself in blitz pickup. In 19, they had 5 men out in the route all the time because the line could win, and even if they didn't, Burrow would get rid of it or elude the rush. You don't have that luxury this time around, so for sure they are making an effort to put the running back in there that can pick up blitzes because they feel like without being able to pick up blitzes, we'll never get a pass off.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're seeing. It's just too much interior penetration. I actually think the people we've had, even Dellinger, Wire, even Deculus, like on the outside, we are not that bad. Guys aren't just speed rushing us right to the quarterback. We're allowing way too much push up the middle. I love Liam. I know he's a smart kid, but just getting pushed back too much time and time again. Chasing, I know he's fighting injuries, getting pushed back, and Ed just seems lost us a lot of times in the pass protection. He's not covering those A gaps up. He's looking to help the tackle, and a lot of times the A gap they're running this simple DT twist, and the D tackles are just flying up the middle. And Max is that's just the worst position to put your quarterback in when they can't escape the pocket. They can't step up in the pocket. So we're going to have to get that stuff figured out. I feel like there's so much stuff going on the offensive side of the ball that you don't want to see. So it's really hard to really open it up and run the stuff that you would like to run. So until we get those things figured out, I don't know how much they can change it, even if they wanted to.
When you're talking about the twists that defensive tackles run, you're talking about the schemed up blitzes that UCLA was running that LSU have a terrible time trying to pick up, all that kind of stuff. That's pretty easy to fix. You turn on the tape, you rep it in practice, you work on communication, guys get back from injury, you have the same 5 guys out there and they can figure it out. Getting shoved back into the backfield is not that fixable. That's who you got. That's Jimmy's and Joe's. That's not X's and O's. And so that's the battle they're fighting now.
Yeah, and I'm glad McCall is out because he'd be doing some pushing around on Saturday. That's just what we've seen all year. And the thing that blew my mind the most is like McNeese in Central Michigan was able to push us back. And I'm like, how in the world is that even possible? But that's just what we've been dealing with as an offense. Every offense has a flaw. I'm sure if you ask Mississippi State, they probably wish they had a Doak Walker running back there they can hand it to and rush for 200 a game, but they don't. Every team has flaws, but it's the best teams out there. They know how to work around their flaws. They know how to counter them. They know how to put their players in best positions to win. And we've tried to do some of those things, but we just haven't done it to the level